When it comes to home theater, I left physical media behind years ago in favor of the convenience of movie servers or streaming. I have nothing against physical media. Lord knows I had a very sizable collection of DVDs and Blu-rays at one point, but the first time I saw a Dune media server at CES about 1 billion years ago, I was hooked, and I was done with the clutter and hassle of, storing all of that packaging. Now, getting your movie collection ported over to hard drives isn't always easy or quick. In total, I believe it took me close to a full year to rip my entire movie collection to hard disk, working, in batches and often at night to enjoy bit-for-bit copies at the push of a button. The whole time I was doing it, thinking to myself, there has to be a better way. And there was. I knew I could achieve similar results using products from Kaleidescape. There was just one problem. Their products at the time were ungodly expensive. Not to mention, back in the day, Kaleidescape was under constant threat of litigation by the studios because, keep in mind, this was before the days of streaming as we know it today. Back then, Netflix was still sending out red envelopes. In those early days, no one really understood what was possible or what you could legally do. And the studios, thinking better, safe than sorry, went after everyone who appeared to be infringing on their IP. Now, for what it's worth, I don't think the studios were necessarily wrong, nor do I think Kaleidescape's early products were created maliciously. As with anything, as technology progresses, there's just bound to be some growing pains. So fast forward to today. Kaleidescape is no longer under threat from the studios, far from it, and its new products no longer rely on discs. While what is considered affordable will always be subjective, I get that. I'm happy to see them come to market with a more obtainable priced product like the Strato V we're reviewing today. Now, before I dive into the Strato V's performance, let's clarify precisely what Kaleidescape is. Despite having a very streaming-like user interface, no matter how you purchase, rent, or interact with the content through the Strato V, it's important to note Kaleidescape is not streaming. Now, Kscape does, in its own way, mimic the experience you are likely used to seeing on apps like Netflix, Apple TV, Fandango. You get the idea. You'll find rows upon rows of poster art on the menu screen that, when selected, open up to reveal details about the film before deciding whether or not to watch. And if your home network is fast enough, you can purchase and download new films to your Strato V in minutes. So with all that out of the way, let's go over the Strato V in more detail. The V is a standalone movie server capable of playing back films in virtually any format up to 4K 60 resolution and in HDR, which includes Dolby Vision, provided you have the latest firmware update. Before Kaleidescape released this firmware update back in late November, the Strato V could not play back Dolby Vision content properly. Before the update, I just couldn't make it through a single movie in Dolby Vision without seeing intermittent black frames throughout the entire film, and this is something that early reviews completely failed to mention. Thankfully, the 10.20 firmware update has resolved this issue, though anecdotally, I have learned that not all Strato V customers have this firmware update yet. On a more positive note, the Strato V and other Kscape products give you the closest experience to physical media there is. Now, when it comes to audio, the V can play back true lossless multi-channel audio formats such as Dolby Atmos, Dolby True HD, DTS:X, and DTS HD Master Audio, something streaming can't always do. However, unlike physical media, films purchased through Kaleidescape's movie store can play back at bit rates as high as 100 megabits per second, which is better than DVD and HD Blu-ray, never mind streaming. Plus, it's on par with some of the best 4K Ultra HD Blu-rays on the market, but with less waste. And it's important to note that when you watch a film on the Strato V, you are not streaming it from a remote server. You play it directly from the device's internal 960 gig hard drive. This gives you access to higher bit rates in audio formats, plus you won't have to deal with buffering issues caused by slow internet speeds or occasional stability issues in your favorite streaming apps. Looking at you, Netflix. So in this regard, Kaleidescape is very similar to having the actual disc. However, because the Strato V has a finite amount of internal storage and films purchased through the Kaleidescape store are just much, much larger than those available on disc or streaming, there is a limit to how many films can be stored locally. For example, I currently have 4 full 4K Dolby Vision movies on the Strato V, and while I don't have enough room for a 5th full 4K title, there is enough room to accommodate about 8 more titles in regular old HD or SD, bringing the total number of films at my current disposal to around 12. Not bad. Now, if I wanted to watch a newer release in 4K, I just have to remove one of the existing 4 from the V. Now, there are settings inside the Strato V player that can be configured to automatically offload already viewed films to make way for new downloads or purchases. However, if you want more storage and access to your film's library without having to offload or re-upload individual films, you can add one of Kaleidescape's Terra Prime movie servers to the Strato V, which are essentially just big external hard drives that allow you to increase your storage so that you can have your entire library at your fingertips, albeit at a pretty substantial cost, ranging anywhere from $5 to $27 grand. Here's a photo of a puppy so you can all calm down. And I'm guessing more than a few of you have already started to type, yeah, but who owns the movie? When you purchase content through the Kaleidescape store, you have the right to watch that title as much as you want, whenever you want, even if you have to offload it to make room for another. You always have access to your purchases and can re-upload them at any time and re-watch them as you please. For those of you who may be wondering if you can, say, port over any titles you may already have purchased through third-party services like Fandango or Apple, the answer is no. The Strato V is not a media player in the same vein as an Apple TV. It does not have third-party apps and only works with content purchased or rented through the Kaleidescape store. Now, when it comes to the home theater experience, make no mistake, no consumer-grade format, be it physical media or streaming, comes close to matching what you get with the Kaleidescape. And the bigger your display or screen, the more adamant I am in advocating for investing in something like a Strato V. On our 98-inch Sony X90L, movies played back through the Strato V were notably better. You will see the difference in contrast and colors immediately, not to mention more resolving of finer details like, say, the weave in different fabrics or the texture variations in an actor's skin. For example, in the film Fury, there are several close-ups of Brad Pitt just, barking orders into his radio. When watching my streaming copy of the film on Fandango, Brad's skin looks more waxy and just artificially smooth compared to the same scene on the Strato V where his skin is rife with texture and appears more true to life. And when directly comparing the films Deadpool, Wolverine, Passengers, and Fury on the Strato V to our Apple TV 4K and even the Zidoo media player, the differences were apparent. When played back on our Sony X90L, the Kaleidescape always won. Admittedly, with the film Passengers and older titles like the disaster flick 2012, the difference between my bit-for-bit copies played back through the Zidoo versus the Strato V was not what I would call night and day, but they were still present. However, in none of my head-to-heads did I walk away from the audio-video experience preferring streaming to the Strato V. An improved visual experience isn't the only upgrade you get. Audio fidelity also improves. Returning to a favorite A/B comparison of mine, Deadpool Wolverine in Dolby Atmos, the opening title sequence just sounded different between the Apple TV and the Strato V. Through the Apple TV, the sound was more compressed. In contrast with the Strato, we listened to Dolby True HD with Atmos. And there is this moment when Deadpool beats a TVA soldier across the face with a certain someone's skeletal remains. And the whoosh and that accompanying metallic sound effects sounded completely different and better through the Strato V. On the Apple TV, this sound was more subdued, even kind of sloppy in terms of its focus, emphasizing the bass for impact while completely curbing the more violent highs that accentuate the speed of the hit itself. Through the Strato V, my God, this moment jolted us back in our seats. It was just so much more in your face and impactful. And I had similar experiences with the film Passengers and Fury, where the Strato V just served up a more visceral and you are there feeling with respect to its sound quality. I mean, it wasn't even close. But as impressed as I am by the Strato V capabilities, it may not be the best solution for everyone or every situation. For example, if you have a smaller TV, anything below about 75 inches, the benefits of the Strato V's higher bit rates, they aren't going to stand out as starkly as they will on a larger display or projection system. If you already own a TV with excellent processing, think Sony's new Bravia 9, the leap in visual quality may not be as obvious. And this was something I noted during our Bravia 9 review. The differences in visual performance were just far more subtle on the 9 than they were on the Sony X90L using the Strato V. And while I'm on the topic of processing, if you already have, say, a standalone video processor in your system, the difference in visual quality may vary. Now, that's not to say that the differences in quality don't exist and that the Strato V doesn't still come out on top. They just might not be as immediately noticeable, which could influence, just some people's view of the Kscape's overall value proposition. Audio improvements will always be noticeable, still, on small displays or ones with already exceptional scaling and processing in their own right. The differences in picture quality become a little bit more subtle. Now, pay very close attention to this next part, because if you don't have a hardwired Ethernet connection at your equipment rack, which is backed up by super fast internet, don't bother. The Strato V has no wireless capability, and if your internet is not lightning quick, 4K Dolby Vision downloads can take forever to complete. Now, the fastest I was able to download a 4K Dolby Vision film was 8 minutes, and that's fast, but that was also using a direct connection to my high-speed internet router. Now, if I connected the Strato V to one of our Google Nest network points, the download time increased a bit to about 30 minutes. But at one point, our home network slowed to less than 100 megabits per second, and my attempt to re-upload Deadpool Wolverine suddenly went from minutes to taking over 7 hours. So if you're not rocking crazy fast internet, do not consider the Strato V or just any Kaleidescape product. As for the actual cost of a movie through Kaleidescape versus, say, the Apple Store, they're actually pretty comparable. For example, I paid $30 for Deadpool Wolverine through the Apple Store. It will cost you the same on Kaleidescape, but the overall experience and product is going to be far superior. As with anything, there are going to be instances where one service is cheaper than the other and vice versa, but overall, titles purchased through the Kaleidescape Store were always within, I'm going to say, $1 or $2 of its competitors. As for selection, everything I searched for, Kaleidescape had. Now, when it comes to the cost of physical media, this really depends on what you're buying and when. Some titles will cost less, but others, like newer releases such as Deadpool Wolverine, are equal in cost whether you buy it on Kscape or you buy the 4K Ultra HD disc of that film. However, there will be instances where you'll have earlier access to films on Kaleidescape, including movies that are still in theaters, whereas you will always wait weeks and sometimes even months to watch a film on disc. But to you physical media holdouts who love to remind cord cutters and streaming enthusiasts like me that they don't actually own anything, let me just say, you're right. You've always been right. There is always a possibility that a platform, service, or business could be bought, sold, closed, or any combination that could negatively affect your virtual library. Kaleidescape is no different. These are just some of the things that one has to weigh when making a decision about how to handle your entertainment. I suppose if you invested in a large enough Terra Prime, you will always have your media with you. Just know that in this instance, your peace of mind ain't going to be cheap, but neither is kind of having to repurchase your favorite movies on disc every time a format changes. At least with Kaleidescape, your money affords you every format of the film, be it SD, HD, or 4K. But if you can't afford Kaleidescape, but you still want a Kaleidescape experience, you have some options. Like I said at the top of this review, with a little help from Google, it is possible to build a Strato-like experience with a media player like a Dune or Zidoo for less money. If you know what you're doing, no, I'm not going to teach you, you can achieve Kaleidescape levels of performance for less, though be prepared to set aside a lot of time, ripping and organizing your movie and music collections so players like those from Dune or Zidoo will be able to see them and skin them in a Kaleidescape sort of way. Just know that those systems don't always get it right, and in some cases don't have the metadata no matter how hard you try. For example, when I was getting my movie library up and running on the new Zidoo player, it didn't identify all of my films correctly, and when I went in to manually do it and I typed in the actual movie's title and year, it didn't always have the metadata. And this is something that you won't run into with Kaleidescape. Nevertheless, this is a small quibble for the money you're going to save building your own. So assuming you've done bit-for-bit transfers of your physical media, the overall audio and video experience should be somewhat comparable to the Strato V. In terms of user experience, you may even prefer the slightly slicker Zidoo user interface. I know I did. Moreover, you have the ability to expand your storage space for less money when going the DIY route. But as with anything in life, the cost of something shouldn't be relegated solely to its MSRP. You have to also factor in your time. When weighing the cost of a Zidoo or Dune Dolby Vision capable media player extra hard drives, not to mention you still have to buy the movies on disc and take the time to rip them one by one, the value proposition of the Strato V gets way easier to justify. But all that said, I'm not about to ditch my existing movie servers, as I have already invested way too much time and money and have gotten this far. However, if I had to do it all over again, I'd probably save myself the hassle and go with something like the Strato V from Kaleidescape. So that's it. That is now my take on Kaleidescape's Strato V. What did you guys think? What do you guys think of a product like this? Is this the kind of thing that is finally putting the nail in physical media, or is it still just a bit too much of a luxury product and niche to have widespread adoption? I'm really curious because I can see both sides of the argument with this one. I did really enjoy my Strato V experience, especially after the firmware update, but I can also make a really strong case for sticking with streaming or something like a Zidoo. So now's your turn to tell me what you think. And if you have any questions or comments or other comparisons that maybe I missed, also leave those down in the comments. You never know, it could end up in next week's Unplugged, where we find out if Christy liked the Kaleidescape at all. Anyway, if you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe, and go ahead and ring that bell so that you're notified when our next video comes out. If you use any of the links Christy's left for you down below, that's a great way that you've shown your support for this channel and the work that we both do here, and both of us thank you very much for that. Follow me on Instagram at Recovering Audiophile, and that is it for me today. So remember, the only person who has to like the sound or sight of your system is you. So happy listening, happy watching, thank you for watching, and we'll see you Friday on a brand new video. Bye.